The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the massive chamber. 847 species had representatives standing in their designated zones, watching as the Velkhari Dominion symbol rotated slowly in the air. The symbol was ancient, carved into the memory of countless worlds that had fallen before it. Today it would claim more. Commander Hyunwoo stood perfectly still in Earth's small observation section. His uniform was simple compared to the elaborate garments worn by other species. Plain gray with minimal decorations. Behind him, Ambassador Ji-won adjusted her tablet, her expression unreadable. They had been expecting this announcement for weeks. Overlord Thexrel materialized in the center hologram. He was massive, even by Velkhari standards. His forearms spread wide in a gesture that species across the galaxy recognized as dominance. His translator began speaking in every language simultaneously. The Velkhari Dominion has decided the time for expansion has come again, Thexrel announced. His voice carried the weight of authority that came from 4 centuries of unchallenged rule. All unaligned worlds in Sectors 7 through 12 must choose. Submit to our protection and governance or face the consequences of independence. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Smaller species shifted nervously. Everyone knew what consequences meant when the Velkhari spoke. It meant fleets. It meant occupation. It meant the end of sovereignty. The hologram shifted, displaying a list of worlds. Earth appeared third from the top. Special mention must be made of the human homeworld, Thexrel continued. A species barely 50 years into space travel. Primitive weapons. No unified military doctrine. No defense fleet worthy of mention. He paused, and Hyunwoo could hear the contempt in the translation. You have been observed. You have been measured. You are insignificant. Several species in the chamber made sounds that their translators interpreted as agreement. Earth was young. Earth was small. Earth had entered galactic society with enthusiasm but little power. These facts were undeniable. Humanity will submit within 30 solar cycles, Thexrel declared, or the Velkhari Armada will arrive to enforce compliance. This is not negotiable. This is not debatable. This is the way of the galaxy. The hologram waited. This was the moment where species typically responded with desperate pleas or immediate surrender. The Velkhari had refined this presentation over centuries. Fear was their greatest weapon, deployed before a single ship ever left port. Ambassador Ji-won stepped forward. Her heels clicked on the polished floor of Earth's section. Every species that had audio sensors turned toward the sound. She reached the barrier that separated Earth's space from the central chamber and pressed the communication button. Pass, she said. The single word echoed through the translation systems. Several species made sounds of confusion. The Velkhari Dominion's representatives looked at each other, their facial features conveying uncertainty even to those unfamiliar with their biology. Thexrel's hologram focused on Ji-won. You do not understand. Pass is not an option. You submit or you face annihilation. I understand perfectly, Ji-won replied. Her voice was calm, almost bored. You've made a threat. We decline to comply. Pass. The chamber erupted. Species that had remained silent now broadcast questions and comments across every frequency. This had never happened before. No one refused the Velkhari. No one was foolish enough to invite their wrath. Hyunwoo watched it all with the same neutral expression he had maintained since entering the chamber. But those standing closest to him noticed something. The corner of his mouth had moved. Just slightly. Just enough. A smile that lasted less than a second. Thexrel's hologram expanded, filling more of the chamber space. It was an intimidation tactic, making himself larger, more imposing. Then the Velkhari Dominion formally declares war upon the human species. Our fleet will arrive at your system in 30 cycles. You will be given one final opportunity to surrender. If you refuse, your world will burn. Ji-won nodded. Understood. Could you transmit the coordinates where your fleet plans to assemble? We'd like to prepare an appropriate welcome. The confusion in the chamber intensified. Species that had been conquered by the Velkhari watched in horror. Species that had never faced war watched in fascination. No one had ever responded to a Velkhari war declaration with what sounded like casual interest. You mock us, Thexrel said. You will learn the price of arrogance. We'll see, Ji-won replied. She closed the communication channel and turned back to Hyunwoo. Well, that went exactly as predicted. Hyunwoo finally allowed himself a proper smile. Intelligence will be pleased. They bet me 50 credits the Velkhari would give us 40 cycles instead of 30. They walked toward the exit while chaos continued behind them. Representatives from other species tried to approach, offering sympathy or advice or refugee status. Ji-won ignored them all. Hyun-woo acknowledged a few with polite nods but said nothing. Outside the chamber in the private diplomatic corridors, Ji-won finally let her professional mask slip. "Do you think they suspect anything?" "No," Hyun-woo said. "They see what they want to see. A primitive species making a brave but foolish gesture. They have no idea we've been watching them for decades. They don't know about the deep space monitoring stations. They don't know about the analysis teams that have been studying their every battle for 40 years. And they definitely don't know about the shipyards," Ji-won added. "No," Hyun-woo agreed. "They don't know about those." His communication device buzzed. He glanced at the message and showed it to Ji-won. It was from Admiral Min Seo, transmitted from Earth using quantum encryption that no known alien species could decode. The message was brief. "Oort cloud facilities are active. Asteroid belt construction is ahead of schedule. Home fleet is ready. Let them come." Ji-won read it and smiled. 30 cycles. "That gives us 4 weeks to finish preparations. More than enough time," Hyun-woo said. "The question is whether the Velkari fleet will be enough of a challenge to test our new systems properly." They reached Earth's private shuttle. As they boarded, Ji-won looked back at the Galactic Council building. Through the transparent dome, she could see thousands of ships from hundreds of species, all going about their peaceful business. Trade vessels, diplomatic shuttles, tourism transports, none of them were warships. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that most species had forgotten what real military vessels looked like. Earth had not forgotten. Earth had never forgotten. As their shuttle left the station, heading back toward human space, Hyun-woo pulled up the classified files on his secure tablet. 40 years of preparation, 40 years of watching, 40 years of learning everything the galaxy could teach about warfare, then adding humanity's own 10,000 years of experience. The Velkari thought they were delivering an ultimatum to a weak species. They were wrong. They were about to receive an education in why humanity had spent its entire existence fighting itself, not because humans were peaceful and had to learn war, but because humans were so good at war that they needed worthy opponents. For 40 years, humanity had been waiting for someone to give them permission to show the galaxy what they really were. The Velkari had just given that permission, and Earth had smirked. The Velkari armada assembled at the edge of their territory with the precision of a species that had conquered half a galaxy. 3,000 warships arranged themselves in battle formations that had broken countless worlds. Overlord Thexrel stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching the fleet gather through floor-to-ceiling view screens. "How long until we reach the human system?" he asked his navigation officer. 28 cycles, Overlord. We will arrive 2 cycles ahead of schedule." Thexrel nodded. "Good. Let the humans watch their doom approach. Let them see the armada on their primitive detection systems and understand the magnitude of their mistake. Perhaps they would surrender before the battle even began." Across the galaxy, the Velkari propaganda network had already begun broadcasting humanity's impending defeat. Holographic displays on 1,000 worlds showed animated simulations of Earth burning. News anchors from compliant species discussed the humans' foolishness. Some expressed sympathy. Most simply accepted the inevitable. On Earth, Admiral Min Seo stood in the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface. The room was massive, filled with holographic displays and hundreds of officers working at their stations. Every screen showed a different aspect of Earth's defensive preparations. "Status report," she said quietly. Her voice carried authority without needing volume. "Lunar defense grid is fully operational," reported one officer. "All railgun batteries are loaded and targeting systems are online. Mars orbital platforms report ready status. Jupiter deep space sensors are tracking the Velkari fleet. Saturn ring defensive positions are manned and supplied." Min Seo nodded, moving to the next display. "And our hidden assets? Oort Cloud shipyards have completed construction on all vessels. 240 warships are ready for deployment. Asteroid belt facilities report similar numbers. Total combat-ready fleet stands at 480 ships. An intelligence officer raised his hand. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity in galactic communication networks. Multiple species are attempting to penetrate our security systems." "Let them look," Min Seo said calmly, "but only at what we want them to see." She had spent 15 years planning for this moment. While Earth's diplomats smiled and traded with alien species, while human corporations bought and sold goods across the galaxy, Earth's military had been working in absolute secrecy. Every piece of alien technology that entered human space had been analyzed, reverse-engineered, and improved. The aliens thought humans were primitive because humanity used kinetic weapons instead of energy beams. They didn't understand that railguns firing tungsten rounds at a fraction of light speed could punch through shields that deflected lasers perfectly. They thought human computers were simple because they didn't use quantum processing. They didn't know human AI had already surpassed their best systems through different mathematical approaches. Dr. Tae Young is requesting permission to activate the experimental systems, another officer reported. Min Seo considered this. The experimental weapons were powerful, but untested in actual combat. Tell him to keep them on standby. We'll use conventional systems first. I want to see how our standard loadout performs before we reveal our surprises. Across the solar system, Captain Jae-hee walked through the corridors of the Indomitable. The ship was humanity's first true warship, designed from the ground up for space combat rather than being converted from civilian vessels. Every system had been built with one purpose: victory. Her crew was running final checks. Engineers examined the engine systems that could accelerate the ship faster than anything the galaxy had seen. Weapons officers calibrated railguns, missile pods, and point defense systems. The electronic warfare team tested their ability to blind and confuse enemy sensors. "Captain," her first officer said, "we've received updated tactical data from intelligence. The Velkari fleet composition and battle formation analysis." Jae-hee studied the data. The Velkari preferred overwhelming firepower concentrated in their center formation. Their flanks were strong but less flexible. Their tactics hadn't changed in 200 years because they had never needed to change them. "They fight like a hammer," she said. "Heavy, powerful, straightforward. And will fight like a knife," her first officer replied, understanding immediately. "Exactly. Fast, precise, lethal. They want to crush us with mass. We'll cut them apart before they can bring that mass to bear." Meanwhile, in orbit around Mars, Lieutenant Sungmin performed his pre-flight checks on his fighter. The small craft was armed with missiles and a single forward railgun. It had no shields, minimal armor, and relied entirely on speed and maneuverability for survival. Every pilot in the squadron knew they might not come back from the battle ahead. None of them cared. They had trained their entire lives for this. Sungmin had grown up hearing stories about Earth's wars. Ancient battles fought with swords and spears. Modern conflicts fought with aircraft and missiles. The endless human capacity for innovation and violence. His instructors had been clear. Humans weren't better than aliens because they were smarter or stronger. Humans were dangerous because they had spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other efficiently. Now they would teach that lesson to the galaxy. Back on Earth, in a secure diplomatic facility, Yoon Seo was having a very different conversation. She was speaking with representatives from 3 species that were currently part of the Velkari Dominion, conquered worlds that had no choice but to serve their masters. "If Earth defeats the Velkari," one representative asked carefully, "what happens to us?" "You go free," Yoon Seo said simply. "We're not interested in building an empire. We just want the Velkari to understand they can't threaten us. But if Earth wins this battle, the Velkari will send more fleets," another representative said. "They have never accepted defeat." "Then we'll defeat those fleets too," Yoon Seo replied. "And if necessary, we'll take the war to their homeworld. We'll keep fighting until they understand that aggression against humanity comes with consequences they can't afford." The representatives looked at each other with expressions that their translators interpreted as a mixture of hope and disbelief. In their experience, young species didn't talk like this. Young species surrendered or died. But there was something in Yoon Seo's voice that suggested she wasn't exaggerating. Something that hinted at capabilities the galaxy didn't know about. High above Earth, in a luxury orbital station that catered to alien tourists, several Velkari intelligence officers were trying to piece together what humanity was actually doing. They had managed to penetrate some of Earth's civilian networks and were analyzing the data. "They're evacuating non-essential personnel from the orbital facilities," one officer reported. "Standard procedure for a species expecting attack." "What about their military deployments?" "Difficult to assess. Their encryption is surprisingly sophisticated. We can see ship movements but can't determine exact numbers or capabilities." The senior intelligence officer frowned. There's something wrong here. The humans are too calm, no panic. No desperate diplomatic attempts to negotiate. They're acting like they expected this. Impossible. No species expects the Velkhari to declare war on them. We're too powerful, perhaps, but I recommend we inform the Overlord that the humans may have surprises prepared. The warning was sent but was lost among thousands of other status reports. Thexrel was confident. His fleet was the largest assembled in a century. His ships were proven in battle. His tactics had never failed. 25 cycles after the declaration, the Velkhari Armada crossed into human-monitored space. Immediately, every sensor system Earth possessed locked onto the fleet. Computers analyzed each ship, cataloging weapons, shield signatures, engine outputs, communication frequencies. Admiral Min Seo watched the data flow into her command center. They're exactly where we predicted they'd be. Formation is standard. No sign they suspect our actual capabilities. Should we hail them? An officer asked. No, let them come. Let them think they're surprising us. The ambush works better when the enemy thinks they're the ones springing it. Commander Hyunwoo, who had returned to Earth after the council meeting, stood beside the admiral. The Velkhari are broadcasting their approach on all frequencies. They want us to know they're coming. They think fear is a weapon. Min Seo smiled coldly. They're about to learn that humanity has spent 40 years preparing for this exact moment. Fear is useful only against those who have something to lose. We already accepted the possibility of loss when we refused their surrender demand. The Velkhari fleet advanced toward Saturn, where they expected to sweep aside any human defense and continue toward Earth. They had no idea what waited for them in the rings. The Velkhari fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Saturn's orbit. 3,000 warships materialized in perfect formation, their shields glowing with power, their weapons charging. Overlord Thexrel stood on his command deck and looked at the gas giant before him. Scan for human vessels, he ordered. The sensor officer worked quickly, then reported with confusion in his voice. Overlord, we're detecting approximately 100 ships in defensive positions around Saturn. They're using the rings for cover. Thexrel laughed. The sound was harsh and dismissive. 100 ships. This is their great defense. This is why they refused our generous offer. He turned to his weapons officer. Destroy them. All vessels open fire when in range. The Velkhari Armada began moving forward. Their formation was tight, designed to concentrate firepower on any target. It was a formation that had broken planetary defenses on 40 worlds. There was no reason it wouldn't work again. Then the first Velkhari ship exploded. The bridge crew froze. Report! Thexrel shouted. Unknown impact. Shields were ineffective. The ship was destroyed by a kinetic projectile moving at 0.3 light speed. Before anyone could respond, 10 more ships exploded in quick succession. Then 20 more. The sensor officer was screaming numbers, but they made no sense. The attacks were coming from everywhere and nowhere. From the rings. From empty space. From angles that should have been impossible. Evasive maneuvers. Thexrel ordered. Return fire! The Velkhari fleet began shooting at the human ships they could see. Energy beams lanced through space, hitting human vessels and overwhelming their shields. 3 human ships exploded. Then 5 more. The exchange looked favorable until the tactical officer completed his analysis. Overlord, we've lost 140 ships. The humans have lost 8. Thexrel stared at the display. How is this possible? The humans were primitives. Their technology was basic. Their ships were small. But they were killing his fleet at a ratio of 17-1. What weapons are they using? Kinetic projectiles accelerated by electromagnetic force. Railguns, according to our database. But moving far faster than we believed possible. Our shields deflect energy weapons easily, but these solid rounds are punching straight through. Captain Jaehee stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched her tactical display with satisfaction. All weapons platforms continue firing. Fighter squadrons, begin your attack run. From hidden positions throughout Saturn's rings, hundreds of automated weapons platforms unleashed torrents of tungsten rounds. Each platform had been positioned carefully over the past 20 years, camouflaged to look like ice chunks and rock fragments. The Velkhari sensors had missed them completely. Now they were revealing themselves, and the Velkhari fleet was paying the price. Lieutenant Sung Min led his fighter squadron toward the enemy formation. His small craft accelerated to speeds that would have torn apart most galactic fighters. Human pilots could withstand higher G-forces than most species. Human fighters were built to exploit that advantage. All units arm missiles. Target their command ships, the ones with the fancy decorations. His squadron launched their attack. Missiles streaked toward Velkhari capital ships, moving in erratic patterns that made them nearly impossible to intercept. Point defense systems tried to track them, but the missiles were too fast, too maneuverable. They slammed into shields and armor, detonating with enough force to crack hulls and disable systems. Sungmin's fighter flashed past a Velkhari destroyer, his railgun firing continuously. The round stitched a line across the destroyer's hull. Finding a weak point near the engine section, the ship began venting atmosphere and fuel. "That's one," he shouted. Moving to next target. Back on the Indomitable, Jae-hee was coordinating the electronic warfare assault. "All systems begin jamming enemy communications. I want them blind and confused." Human electronic warfare operators activated systems that had been designed specifically to disrupt Velkhari technology. Suddenly, the enemy fleet found their communications cutting in and out. Their sensors were giving false readings. Their targeting computers were reporting ghost contacts. The Velkhari fleet began firing at shadows while real human ships approached from unexpected angles. "They're in chaos," Jae-hee's first officer reported. "Their formation is breaking up. Ships are colliding with each other." "Good. Now we show them what humans really prepared for this fight. Launch the boarding pods." From several human warships, small pods launched toward disabled Velkhari vessels. Each pod contained a team of Marines in zero-gravity combat suits. The Velkhari had never experienced boarding actions before. Most galactic species considered ship-to-ship boarding too dangerous, too primitive. Humans had been perfecting boarding tactics for centuries. The pods latched onto Velkhari hulls and cut through. Marines poured into the enemy ships, moving through corridors with practiced efficiency. The Velkhari crew tried to resist, but they were used to bridge combat, not close quarters fighting in their own ships. Human Marines cleared section after section, using tactics developed in countless Earth conflicts. Within 30 minutes, 5 Velkhari capital ships had been captured intact. Overlord Thexrel watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and couldn't understand how this had happened. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be easy prey. Instead, they were fighting with a ferocity and skill that the galaxy hadn't seen in centuries. "Overlord," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from the humans. Audio and visual. Put it on screen." Admiral Minseo appeared on the display. She was standing in what looked like a command center, calm and composed despite the battle raging outside. "Overlord Thexrel, I am Admiral Minseo of Earth's Home Defense Fleet. I'm offering you one chance to withdraw your forces and leave our solar system." Thexrel's anger exploded. "You dare! You primitive species? You think winning one battle means victory? The Velkhari Dominion has thousands of ships. Tens of thousands! We will crush you." Minseo's expression didn't change. "Then you've chosen. All units execute protocol Hammerfall." The transmission ended. Thexrel was about to order his fleet to intensify their attack when every screen on his bridge went white. The electromagnetic pulse hit the Velkhari fleet like a tidal wave. Half their ships went dark instantly, their systems overwhelmed by the massive surge of energy. The pulse had been generated by devices planted throughout the rings, activated simultaneously on Minseo's command. The human ships, hardened against electromagnetic attacks, continued functioning perfectly. Now the Velkhari fleet was truly helpless. Dead ships drifted in formation, their crews trapped inside without power, without life support, without any way to fight back. The ships that still had power were scattered, disorganized, unable to form coherent defensive lines. Captain Jae-hee broadcast to all human vessels. "All ships begin final assault. Disable but do not destroy vessels that surrender. Any ship that continues fighting is a valid target." The human fleet swept through the Velkhari formation like wolves through sheep. Railguns fired with precision, targeting engines and weapons systems. Missiles knocked out communication arrays. Fighter squadrons harried any Velkhari ship that tried to escape. The battle lasted 6 more hours. When it ended, the Velkhari fleet had been devastated. 2,200 ships destroyed or disabled. 800 ships fled back toward Velkhari space, their formation broken. Their confidence shattered. Human losses. 40 ships destroyed. 90 damaged but repairable. Overlord Thexeral's flagship was one of those fleeing. He sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display showing the carnage behind him. The humans hadn't pursued. They had simply let the survivors run. That was somehow worse than if they had pressed the attack. It meant the humans were confident. It meant they knew the Velkhari would be back and they weren't worried. "Prepare a message to the Dominion Council," Thexeral said quietly. "Inform them that we have failed. Inform them that Earth is not what we believed." As the last Velkhari ships vanished into faster-than-light travel, Admiral Minseo stood in her command center and allowed herself a small smile. Around her, officers were cheering, celebrating the victory. "Broadcast to the Galactic Council," she ordered. "Full footage of the battle. Let every species see what happened here today." Commander Hyunwoo, watching from his station, nodded in approval. "That will change the political situation considerably." "Yes," Minseo agreed. "But the war isn't over. The Velkhari will be back. This was just their first lesson." "Then we'll teach them another one," Hyunwoo said simply. The message went out across the galaxy. Within hours, every species knew what had happened at Saturn. The Velkhari Dominion, undefeated for 400 years, had been crushed by a species they called primitive. Earth had won its first battle, but now the real war would begin. The Galactic Council chambers were silent when Ambassador Jiwon entered 2 solar cycles after the Battle of Saturn's Rings. Every species representative was present. Every screen showed footage of the battle that had changed galactic history. Velkhari ships exploding, human forces moving with precision that seemed impossible. The final tally of destruction that no one could believe. Jiwon walked to Earth section calmly, as if she had not just represented a species that had humiliated the galaxy's greatest military power. She activated her communication channel. "The human government wishes to make a statement." The council waited. Some species expected an offer of peace. Others expected gloating. None of them expected what came next. The Velkhari Dominion declared war on Earth without provocation. They attempted to conquer our homeworld and enslave our people. We defeated their fleet in our home system. Now we will ensure they never threaten us again. Effective immediately, Earth is taking the war to Velkhari territory. Any species currently under Velkhari control that wishes independence should contact human diplomatic channels. "We are coming to free you." The chamber erupted in chaos. Species shouted questions in 100 languages. Velkhari representatives tried to respond, but their voices were drowned out. Jiwon simply closed the channel and left. General Boram stood in the briefing room of the warship Retribution, looking at the holographic display of Velkhari space. She was 50 years old, a veteran of Earth's border wars, and had spent the last decade preparing for exactly this kind of campaign. Around her, commanders from 30 different ships waited for their orders. "Our objective is simple," Boram said. "We destroy the Velkhari's ability to make war. That means shipyards, supply depots, military bases, and command centers. We avoid civilian casualties where possible. But our primary goal is to break their military power so completely that they never threaten anyone again." She zoomed the display to show their first target. The Velkhari maintain a major shipyard complex in the Terrax system. Intelligence reports it can produce 200 warships per year. It's defended by approximately 500 vessels and multiple orbital defense platforms. "We will destroy it in 3 days. One commander raised his hand. "General, 3 days seems optimistic for a target that heavily defended." Boram smiled coldly. "That includes travel time. The attack on Terrax came without warning. The Velkhari defenders detected the human fleet 30 minutes before they arrived, which gave them barely enough time to sound the alarm. 150 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately engaged. This time, the Velkhari were prepared. They had studied the Battle of Saturn's Rings. They had adapted their tactics. They deployed their own electronic warfare systems. They spread their formation to avoid concentrated attacks. It didn't matter. The human fleet tore through them like they were training targets. Human ships moved in coordinated wolf packs, supporting each other, covering each other's weaknesses. When Velkhari ships tried to focus fire on a single human vessel, 2 others would flank and destroy the attackers. When the Velkhari tried to retreat, human ships anticipated their movements and cut them off. The orbital defense platforms lasted 20 minutes before being reduced to debris. The shipyard complex tried to evacuate its workers, But human ships had already disabled their transport vessels. Marines boarded the stations, secured them, and only then allowed the Velkhari workers to leave on human ships. General Boram walked through the captured shipyard command center 3 days later, exactly as she had predicted.
Engineers were already analyzing the Velkhari construction techniques, finding weaknesses that could be exploited in future battles. Shipyard is under our control.
Velkhari defenders lost 420 ships. We lost 18. No civilian casualties. The workers are being transported to a neutral world where they can request asylum or return to Velkhari space. Boram nodded. Good. Prepare to move to the next target. And broadcast footage of this battle to the galaxy. I want everyone to see that we keep our promises. We said we would free Velkhari subjects. We're proving it. While Boram's fleet struck at military targets, Commander Haywan was conducting a different kind of warfare. She led a special operations team deep behind Velkhari lines, targeting their logistics and supply networks. Her team was small, just 30 operators, but they were causing damage far beyond their numbers. In the Velkhari-controlled system of Durex, Haywan's team infiltrated a major fuel depot. They bypassed security systems that were designed to stop large-scale attacks, but had never considered that someone might simply walk in through the maintenance entrance. Once inside, they planted explosives with precision timing. The depot exploded just as a Velkhari fleet was preparing to refuel. 20 ships were caught in the blast. 50 more were stranded without fuel, unable to respond to the human offensive. Target destroyed, Haywan reported over encrypted channels. Moving to next objective. Casualty count 0 on both sides. The depot was automated. Her team vanished before Velkhari security forces even arrived. They were already on their way to their next target, a communication relay that coordinated Velkhari fleet movements across 3 sectors. Meanwhile, diplomat Yun Seo was having the most important conversations of her career. She was meeting with leaders from species that had been conquered by the Velkhari decades or centuries ago. Species that had forgotten what independence felt like. We can offer you protection, Yun Seo said to a delegation from the Mirren people. If you declare independence, Earth will guarantee your security. We have no interest in controlling you. We simply want the Velkhari Dominion broken up, so it can never threaten anyone again. The Mirren leader was old, scarred from conflicts long past. And what happens when Earth leaves? The Velkhari will return. They always return. Not this time, Yun Seo said firmly. This time we're making sure they can't. We're not just defeating their military. We're dismantling their entire ability to project power. By the time we're done, the Velkhari will be lucky if they can defend their own homeworld. Over the next 30 solar cycles, 6 species declared independence from the Velkhari Dominion. Human fleets immediately moved to defend them. When Velkhari forces tried to reconquer these worlds, they found human warships waiting. The battles were brief and brutal. The Velkhari lost every time. The offensive continued. Human forces struck at the Velkhari's core territories, destroying military infrastructure while carefully avoiding civilian targets. The Velkhari tried to adapt, but their military doctrine was centuries old. Human tactics evolved daily, incorporating lessons from each battle. General Boram's fleet attacked Velkhari supply lines, cutting off entire sectors from reinforcement. Commander Haywan's special operations team sabotaged shipyards and communication networks. The Velkhari military machine, which had seemed invincible, was being systematically taken apart. The turning point came at the Battle of Velkhari Prime's orbital stations. The Velkhari homeworld was defended by 1,200 warships and the most advanced defense network in the galaxy. It was considered impregnable. General Boram attacked it with 300 ships and captured the entire defensive grid in 18 hours. The key was audacity. While Velkhari commanders expected a cautious approach, Boram led a direct assault on the command station that controlled all defense systems. Her flagship, the Retribution, took severe damage but succeeded in delivering a Marine assault team directly to the station's control center. Lieutenant Kyung-soo led that team. 25 Marines against 400 Velkhari defenders. The Velkhari expected the humans to surrender. Instead, the Marines fought through the station room by room, using zero-gravity combat techniques that the Velkhari couldn't counter. Kyung-soo personally captured the Velkhari defense commander and forced him to surrender the entire network. With the defense grid under human control, the Velkhari fleet was helpless. Boram gave them 1 hour to surrender, or she would turn their own defenses against them. The Velkhari fleet surrendered. Commander Haywan's team infiltrated the Velkhari council chambers on the homeworld itself. They didn't harm anyone. They simply walked into the most secure building on the planet, accessed the main communication system, and broadcast a message from Earth. Admiral Minseo appeared on every screen in Velkhari space. People of the Velkhari Dominion, your military leadership declared war on humanity. We have defeated them. We have captured your defenses. We have liberated your conquered territories. Now we offer you a choice. Your government can surrender unconditionally and face justice for their war crimes, or we will glass your homeworld from orbit. You have 24 hours to decide. The broadcast ended. Across Velkhari space, people watched and waited. Some called for continued resistance, but most looked at what had happened over the past months and realized the truth. Humanity had won, completely, decisively. Continuing the war would only bring more destruction. 20 hours later, the Velkhari Council transmitted their unconditional surrender. Overlord Thexeril was arrested by his own people and handed over to a war crimes tribunal. The Velkhari Dominion formally dissolved itself. Subject species declared independence with human protection. The war that the Velkhari had started with such confidence ended with their complete defeat. 6 months after the Velkhari surrender, the Galactic Council met in an emergency session. The chambers had been rebuilt after the war, with new security systems and expanded space for additional members. Every species was present, but the atmosphere was completely different from the last time they had gathered. Ambassador Jiwan walked to Earth's section, which was no longer the small observation area it had been before. Now Earth had a proper delegation space, equal to the older and more established species. No one had objected to the change. No one dared. The Council recognizes Earth's ambassador, the session leader announced. Their voice carried respect that hadn't been there before. G1 activated her display. The human government presents the following terms for post-war galactic reorganization. First, the former Velkhari Dominion is dissolved. All previously conquered species are now independent. Second, Earth will maintain military outposts in strategic locations to ensure rapid response to any future aggression. These outposts are for defense only and claim no territorial sovereignty. Third, humanity establishes the Terran Security Initiative, a volunteer defense force available to species that cannot adequately defend themselves. She paused, looking around the chamber. Every species was listening intently. Fourth and most important, any species that declares war on another must now contend with humanity's response. We will not tolerate aggressive expansion. We will not accept unprovoked conquest. The age of might making right is over. From this moment forward, aggression has consequences. One species representative raised their hand tentatively. And if we do not agree to these terms? G1's expression didn't change. Then you are free to leave the council and govern yourselves as you see fit. But you should know that Earth has defeated the most powerful military force the galaxy has seen in centuries. We did it in 6 months. We did it while deliberately avoiding civilian casualties. Imagine what we could do if we decided to fight the way the Velkhari did. The representative sat down without another word. The vote was unanimous. Earth's terms were accepted. Commander Hyunwoo had been promoted to Galactic Defense Coordinator, a new position created specifically for him. His office overlooked the council chambers from a secure facility. His job was to monitor galactic military activities and coordinate rapid response to any threats. On his screens, he could see the deployment of human forces across dozens of systems. Each outpost was small, just enough ships and personnel to respond to local threats, but they were connected by a communication network that allowed Earth to deploy overwhelming force anywhere in the galaxy within days. Commander, his assistant said, we have a request from the Keltar species. They're reporting pirates in their shipping lanes and asking for assistance. Hyunwoo pulled up the data. The Keltar were a peaceful trading species with no military to speak of. Dispatch a security patrol. 3 ships should be sufficient. Rules of engagement. Disable the pirate vessels, arrest the crews, turn them over to Keltar authorities. Understood, sir. This was the new reality. Earth had become the enforcer of galactic peace, not through conquest but through demonstrated capability. Species that had problems knew they could call on human forces. Species that caused problems knew humans would respond. Admiral Minseo had returned to Earth. but maintained her role as overall commander of human military forces. She stood in the rebuilt command center, watching as her fleet conducted training exercises with ships from allied species. Humans were teaching their combat doctrine to anyone who wanted to learn. Captain Jae-hee had become an instructor, leading classes at the new Galactic Defense Academy established on Luna. Her students were a mixture of humans and aliens, all learning how Earth fought and why their methods were so effective. The key to human military success, she told her class, is not superior technology. Many of you come from species with more advanced systems than ours. The key is mindset. When we fight to win decisively. We study our enemies. We adapt constantly. We use every advantage, even ones that seem primitive. A young alien student raised their appendage. But instructor, your species has been fighting for thousands of years. We have been peaceful. How can we learn in months what took you millennia? You don't need to learn everything, Jae-hee replied. You just need to learn enough to defend yourselves until help arrives. That's what the Terran Security Initiative is for. We're your backup, but we expect you to be able to hold out long enough for us to get there. Dr. Taeyang's research division had a new mission. Instead of developing weapons in secret, they were now sharing technology with peaceful species. Under strict supervision and with careful controls, but sharing nonetheless. Species that had struggled with basic shield technology were suddenly equipped with defenses that could withstand significant attacks. We're not giving away our best systems, Taeyang explained to his team, but we're providing enough capability that aggressive species will think twice before attacking. The goal is deterrence, not domination. Lieutenant Seung Min had survived the war and received multiple decorations for his service. He now led a fighter squadron that patrolled the edges of human-protected space. His pilots were the first responders to any threat, the ones who bought time for larger forces to arrive if needed. Contact bearing 273, his sensor operator reported. Unknown vessels approaching the Mirren system. All fighters battle formation. Let's go see who's being stupid today. The squadron accelerated toward the contact. When they arrived, they found 3 ships from a species Seung Min didn't recognize. His computer identified them as Krellian vessels, a minor power known for raiding weaker species. Attention, Krellian vessels. Seung Min broadcast. You are approaching Mirren territory. The Mirren people are under Terran protection. Turn back now or we will disable your ships. The Krellian response was to open fire. Their weapons missed completely. Seung Min's squadron returned fire with precision, targeting engines and weapons systems. Within 5 minutes, all 3 Krellian ships were dead in space, their crews alive but their vessels disabled. Seung Min to Mirren Defense Forces. 3 disabled ships at your coordinates. Arrest the crews and feel free to confiscate their vessels. Thank you, Lieutenant. This is the 3rd time this month you've saved us. Just doing our job, Seung Min replied. Maybe word will eventually get around that raiding protected species is bad for your ship's health. 5 years passed. The galaxy settled into a new normal. The Velkhari homeworld was rebuilding. Their military limited to defensive forces only. Former subject species were thriving in independence. Trade flourished without the threat of conquest hanging over every transaction. But not every species was happy with the new order. The Hragoth were a species from the galactic fringe who had been expanding slowly for decades. They had never encountered significant resistance. When they heard about Earth's defeat of the Velkhari, they assumed it was exaggeration or luck. They continued their expansion, conquering 2 small species that hadn't requested human protection. Then they made a mistake. They demanded that a human outpost evacuate from what they claimed was their territory. When the outpost refused, the Hragoth fleet arrived with 200 warships. The outpost had 12 human ships. The Hragoth commander broadcast his demands. Leave now or be destroyed. We are not the Velkhari. We will not be defeated by a species that relies on tricks and deception. The human outpost commander's response was simple. We don't need tricks. The battle lasted 40 minutes. The Hragoth fleet lost 170 ships. The human outpost lost 2. Reinforcements from Earth arrived to find the battle already over, and the remaining Hragoth vessels fleeing in panic. When the Galactic Council convened to discuss the incident, Ji-won's statement was brief. The Hragoth attacked a human military installation. We defended ourselves. If they wish to discuss terms of surrender, we're available. If they wish to continue hostilities, we're prepared for that too. The Hragoth chose surrender. Their expansion stopped immediately. Their military was reduced. They joined the list of species that had learned the lesson. Aggression has consequences. Now, 5 years after the war, the Galactic Council was in session again. A new species had just achieved faster-than-light travel and had sent their first diplomatic mission to the Council. They were young, eager, and unfortunately aggressive by nature. Their representative stood in the center of the chamber and delivered what they clearly thought was an impressive speech. "We are the Draxian Collective. We have conquered every species on our world. We have built a mighty fleet. We demand that this council grant us territory suitable for our expansion. We will accept systems in sectors 9 through 14. Any species currently occupying those systems will relocate." The chamber was silent. Every species representative turned to look at Earth's section. Ambassador G1 was older now, her hair showing streaks of gray. But her eyes held the same sharp intelligence they always had. She stood slowly and activated her communication channel. The Draxian representative saw her movement and pointed aggressively in her direction. "You human! We have heard stories about your species. We do not believe them. You are small. You are few. You cannot oppose us.